I've been seeing the number 111 over the last few days, and I mentioned it to my wife just a little bit ago before coming on to do this broadcast. And I was looking up scripture verses. Normally, when I see 111, it's speaking to me about 2 Timothy 111. So it's a very pivotal verse for my life, but I didn't feel like that was what it was. And I looked it up. Proverbs 111 says that the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. And actually in Proverbs 11:11 it says, through the blessing of the upright a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is destroyed. And I feel like what the Lord is sharing are some key prayer strategies, if you will, for the time we're in right now. For those of you who don't know, the inauguration, well, you probably know the inauguration is on the Friday the 20th, but there are a lot of other things that are going on behind the scenes, where a lot of political involvement behind the scenes to try and prevent it from happening. And I believe the Lord is calling us to prayer to see that it goes through. So the first thing is Proverbs 11:1 about dishonest scales. Dishonest scales are what we've been seeing in this nation, especially in the last 8 years. Now, it happens to an extent with any presidency, but increasingly in the last 8 years, we've seen an extreme dishonesty and a disparity in the way people are treated. The whole IRS scandal, where the IRS was targeting certain either Republican and or Christian groups. And again, this isn't about Republican or Democrat. This is about dishonest scales, where different groups have been being targeted. Recently, with the whole Obamacare thing, there's a group of nuns who, they're a charity, and the only reason they exist is to help do hospice care for indigent people who can't afford it. And they were being forced to pay for birth control for health care when that's something religiously that their organization doesn't believe in. But the problem is those same requirements aren't being placed on certain other organizations that don't have a religious affiliation. So again, there's this disparity in the way people are being treated under the exact same laws. And theoretically, everybody should be required to follow the same laws. Even with immigration, whether you like our immigration laws or not, the fact is they are our laws. And the fact that we've developed sanctuary cities, basically the idea is that it's okay not to follow our immigration laws in these cities. So that in of itself, it creates a disparity and an injustice because nothing's fair, and laws are designed to be fair and impartial. So what the Lord is saying is that we need to pray in a righteousness and an honesty into this nation, but part of that has to do with overthrowing essentially the current regime that has created a system of dishonest scales. So that brings us to Proverbs 11:11, where through the blessing of the upright a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it's destroyed. We in our prayers, as we bless this nation, as we bless what God is doing, we are going to see this nation exalted. We are going to see really a difference between whether we continue to speak negative over this land or positive over this land, because if we choose to engage in words of wickedness, we will see this nation destroyed. But that's not the will of God for us. As I've been saying all along, Psalms 89:14 says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne, and it says loving kindness and truth go before him. So if we want to see righteousness and justice be installed in this nation yet again, then we need to make ourselves a resting place for God, and we need to do that through prayer and intercession in this time. So we have what today is the 13th. We've got 1 week. So today's Friday the 13th. We've got 1 week till the inauguration on the 20th. Tomorrow I'm calling everybody, as I've been doing all along, tomorrow, fast all day, and then the 3 days leading up to and through the inauguration, I'm encouraging everybody to fast. Food, fast whatever you can, but I'm planning to fast food, and I'm typically fast social media during that time. And then on the inauguration day itself, that once President-elect Trump is sworn in and becomes the president, that we will all take communion in our own houses, in our own places. There's no way to coordinate that, but it's going to be once he's sworn in that we're just going to take communion as a way of establishing prophetically that the Lord's way is being done in this nation, kind of consecrating that moment and this nation to the Lord once again. There's a couple of dreams that I have, some people I know have come in contact with. Hi, Mom. that I think it's important for people to hear. I actually got a call from my brother this afternoon, and he was sharing some concerns that the Lord had placed on his heart about the very same things that I'm about to bring up. And I just felt that was a really clear, confirming word about what the Lord's been speaking to me and those I know. So my brother-in-law the other day, he had a dream the other night. It was during the inauguration itself. President Obama had a plan to do a last-minute governmental coup to keep himself in power and then install Hillary Clinton. Again, this is a dream. Trump had plainclothes soldiers, veterans, essentially a militia of people, thousands of people planted all over the D.C. area in order to prevent this, basically an overthrow. Because if you understand that while Obama is in a position of power now, that ends in a week, and anything that goes on to push him past that is an illegal use of power, with some exceptions, and that's what we're going to discuss. So anyway, this coup's about to go into action, and all of Trump's plainclothes men basically get up and they just yell, "Stand down." And I believe that dream is showing us the wisdom of the Lord, of God's plan, that the enemy is to stand down. That Trump, if you think about it, the remnant, the Lord has a remnant reserved in this nation that are pursuing righteousness and justice. They're plainclothes people. There are people like you and me, and they're hidden all around the area, all around the land. The Lord is saying that it is our job to be the militia, to stand in prayer and say to the enemy, "Stand down." And as we do that, the enemy's hands are going to be tied, and we will see the righteousness and the justice and the will of the Lord released in this nation. I have another friend, Praying Medic, some of you guys may know. He posted a message a few days ago on January 10th from somebody had sent him a dream they had the night before. In this dream, there was a mass shooting during the presidential inauguration, and that there were a lot of children present, they noticed in the dream. I believe this is another warning. Basically, it's just a continued encouragement. We need to pray. We need to pray that there is peace. We need to pray against riots. It's the same thing we've been praying for this entire time, but we need to pray against riots. We need to pray that there be physical peace in the land, and specifically in the D.C. area. I have a lot of family who live in the D.C. area. I particularly don't want there to be major problems, but it is very important for the course of this nation that we continue to pray and fast. I believe fasting is very important. Whether you believe that it moves God's hand or moves us or whatever is irrelevant. The fact is we know fasting works, and it changes our own selves. It changes our focus, and it also frees up time where we're not focusing on cooking and doing things. Melody, is this not loading right? Just write in the comments if it's not loading right, but it seems like it's working fine on my end. I apologize if it's not coming through. But basically, we need to continue to pray. There is a plan of the enemy to attack this nation, to destroy the work that God is doing. And we don't want to see that happen. There's been a lot of work and a lot of prayer that went into getting President-elect Trump elected to begin with. And we don't want to see that overturned. I will say that something else that's going on in this situation, I kind of mentioned it in the initial comments on the broadcast, is that we're praying about the inauguration and war with Russia. Where does war with Russia come in? Right now, President Obama and people in positions of power are working overtime to try and start a war with Russia. The fact is, nobody really wants a war with Russia. Russia doesn't want a war with us. The only real reason to cause a war with Russia right now is that if we start a war with Russia within this next week, the president can enact martial law, which also means that he can forestall the handover of the presidency. So we need to pray, one, that Russia has a lot of wisdom and insight. We need to pray for Russia to have wisdom and insight and even patience, because right now we have troops that are massing on the border of Poland. We have troops that are being sent, tanks, infantry. Our troops are currently right now being sent to essentially posture and get ready to start war with Russia. It's completely absurd. There's no good reason for it. And the fact is, Putin and Trump have been talking. It's not something either of them want. So as long as we make it a week without a war, then we can fairly well be certain that we're not going to have one. However, like I said, powers that be are really trying to push this forward to, glad it's working for you, Melody. Powers that be are really trying to push this forward to make it so we can start a war and prevent the President-elect Trump from becoming the president. A lot of you probably already know this, but the reason it is so significant that Trump becomes the president is because there's going to be a massive overhaul in this nation. There are sweeping reforms that are going to take place, and we need to continue to pray afterwards that this does happen. But the Lord has sweeping reforms planned for this nation. As a nurse, I can tell you that even the Affordable Health Care Act, it's not affordable. It's not health care. I mean, it doesn't help health care. It's actually harder for people to get care. It's harder for doctors to order the tests that they need and want based on the way it changes billing procedures. It makes it more difficult to do the care that people need and want to get under the Affordable Health Care Act. And there are some positives, the pre-existing conditions. There are some good things out of that act, but most of it, by and large, has created more problems, and it's not made things affordable. It's cost people more. In a free market economy, theoretically, people should have the right to opt in and out of those things. And that is just yet another aspect of how we have just this dishonesty and this unrighteousness in the way our nation's being run. But that's just one example. It's a failing and failed system that's expected to get turned over. We're expecting to see reform in immigration, not because we're anti-immigration, but because we need to know who's in this nation, and we need to make it so they can be here legally, they can pay taxes like the rest of us. It stops taxing our healthcare system as badly because when they have insurance, we can bill their insurance. As a nurse, I do work with a lot of illegal immigrants, and I'm more than happy to take care of them. That's not the problem. It's that it further taxes our healthcare system when somebody can't pay a bill. And the issue there is that as we legalize people, as we make sure that people we want to be here are here, and people who are dangerous and criminal, they get removed and they're no longer in this nation to cause problems, that we can see greater prosperity. I believe there's a lot of room for business, a lot of room for commerce. That there's a lot of business people who are expecting, and rightly so, to see a boom in commerce over the next few years. And I believe that will happen. It's something the Lord has planned for us, and I do believe there is still potential for an economic collapse somewhere down the line, but the Lord's shown me that this is much like Joseph. Trump is much like Joseph in that the Lord is putting him in place so we have a series of good years before we have the potential for any series of lean years, so that we can recover, we can change a lot of things in this nation, and people can be better prepared for anything that might happen down the line. So this isn't something to be in fear about, but it is something that we need to pay close attention to, that the Lord has plans for this nation, that if we are at a tipping point, and if we do not pray through the answer to prayer we got at the election, we have to pray it through. Failure to pray it through, failure to get Trump put in as the president would have significant negative ramifications for this nation. And as anyone living here, none of us want that to happen. So I want to encourage you guys to fast and pray for America. If you look online, there's actually a Facebook event. You can search it. It's called Fast and Pray for America. You can search that and find it, and there's a list of, I believe, 9 prayer points that I'm encouraging people to pray through. If you go to my website, www.thekingsofeden.com, at the top search bar there's also a line for Fast and Pray for America. You can check some of the previous live broadcasts we've done. You can check out some other information I have there. But as a whole, the key really is that we must be in a position of prayer. We are the saints. We are the army of the Lord, basically. We have angelic hosts behind us. Greater is he who's in us than he who's in the world. Greater are those who are for us than those who are against us. But God has put us in a position of authority. He is raising up sons and daughters of God to be mature sons. There is a word teknon used in the New Testament that talks about the not technon, whatever. There's huios, technon, and nepios, I believe. But the Lord is talking about the mature sons of God. I believe that's huios. I may be mixing it up. But the point is, if you actually study it out, the Bible talks in the New Testament about the mature sons of God. And God is looking for mature sons and daughters to rise up in prayer, and not just rise up in prayer, but to legislate and command his will on earth as it is in heaven. And Jesus, when he prayed in the Lord's Prayer, he wasn't asking God, let your will be done, please. He was simply demanding and commanding. In a prayer of command, he said, come your kingdom and be done your will on earth. He wasn't asking, he was telling the earth, the situation, how it was going to be. And that's what we need to do. So I encourage everyone, continue. Like I said, hop on the event, hop on the website, www.thekingsofeden.com, search on Facebook, Fast and Pray for America. It's an event. Join the event, share the event, and I'll be putting links to those in the comments in just a little bit here. But I encourage all of you. I know a lot of you already have been praying. I thank you for doing that. This isn't saying that anybody's not been doing something. This is just an encouragement to continue doing what you're doing. I encourage anyone, if you've gotten any additional revelation on this subject, feel free to share visions, dreams, things the Lord's told you in the comments here. Feel free to do it on my website as well. But let's continue to push through. We've got one more week to push this through, to see the plans of the Lord. And I believe after that we still need to pray, but I believe it's going to get a lot easier. I know somebody who's actually on right now, who the Lord has told them to hold off on starting some new projects until after the inauguration. And I believe the reason for that, and we were talking about that the other day, the reason is that there is a sort of spiritual stamp that gets put on things, depending on the times and seasons that we start them. And I believe the Lord is wanting to stamp things with righteousness and justice. The Lord is wanting to stamp things with prosperity. The Lord is wanting to put the seal of blessing on things. And there has been a dampening and a holding back in this nation that it... in the last 8 years, there's been this sort of dampening in this nation. I believe God is positioning people to break through the gate in this year. So I encourage you guys, even if you are starting a new venture of some kind, consider holding off for 1 week. I'm not saying that's the word of the Lord to you. I'm saying just pray about it. But the Lord has good plans for this nation, regardless of what anybody's going to tell you about the destruction, the doom in America, regardless of what anyone wants to tell you about doomsday prophecies and Armageddon in Israel, regardless of what anybody says about the end times and how it's all going to, hell in a handbasket or whatever. The fact is, the Lord has good plans for this nation because he's a good God. He's kind. He's just. He's loving. And there is nothing that the Lord will do even in judgment, other than to remove everything that hinders love. It's not to destroy things. It's not to tear down. It's to remove everything that hinders his love being displayed. It's to remove everything that hinders his life, because God has life and life abundantly for us. He wants prosperity. He wants all poverty to go. He wants all sickness and disease to go. He wants corruption to go. He wants everything that does not line up with his goodness to be brought out and drawn out of this nation. I believe this is a time that the Lord is using. It's a time of fire, but it's because the Lord is refining everything out of this nation that doesn't belong. The Bible says in the shaking that he'll shake everything that can be shaken, basically until everything that can't be shaken remains. So the things that are a firm foundation in this nation are what's going to be left. And this is a time of shaking. This is a time where there's a lot of turmoil, and that's okay, because the Lord is releasing his goodness in and through the situation. So like I said, I encourage you guys to stand in prayer. I encourage you guys even to, if you can, tomorrow, during next Friday, get together this week with people and pray for this nation, because I believe that the Lord has spoken clearly that he has good things that he's going to do, and we as the saints can pray it through. Love you guys. Bless you guys. Have a great evening. If you would... subscribe to my Facebook Live. Somewhere on here there's a button that'll let you click follow, and that way anytime I'm doing other broadcasts in the future, whether it's about prayer or whatever else, you guys get a notification. Also, if you share this, it'll help get the word out so other people can really get on board who may not have heard what it is that God's been saying about this election, about this time we're in. Let them know what it is that the Lord's saying and doing. I love you guys, and hope you have a great night.